Greetings, Patrick here, Eight Questions with, and welcome to the show. All right. Glad to be here. Glad you're here with us. And today we'll be talking with entrepreneur and inventor um, Robert Kundel Jr. He has created a tool called the Restore, which is a multi-purpose tool that you can use for sanding and grinding, and I'm sure a lot of other things that Robert will explain to us. And it is a hand-operated tool, so it's no big, it's not bulky. It's very easy, very light to use. It has all sorts of attachments that come to it, and I think what really caught my eye about Robert's tool to restore is the story behind it and what he aims to do with the money that he makes off this revolutionary hand tool, multi-purpose tool. Now Robert is no stranger to business, though. He has a family business based in Ohio, the Kundel Industries, and of course, when I read about what exactly this is Kundel Industries does, I really wasn't surprised by what I read. Hey, Anthony, how are you? I really wasn't surprised about what I read. Some of his business, creates when you dig down, when you go to construction, like utilities, power utilities, a lot of times they dig trenches, when they put in new water pipe or what have you, and they dig these trenches. And every year you always hear about some of these trenches that collapse, and the people that are caught in them, they die of suffocation and pressure. And Robert's company makes these safety containers that adds strength to the pit so it won't collapse. Or if it does, which we'll ask them about, it slows it down enough that you can rescue your workers out of there. It's not going to just collapse and then you're done. And when I read that, I was like, this is sort of cool right here, because my brother Philip, he used to work in the trenches too, and I got to be honest with you, man, I hated every moment of it. I Every time him and I would talk on the phone, I'd be sitting there going like, "Are you still doing that? Are you still doing that?" Because I was, it made me nervous. I don't try, when I see people down there in those trenches digging that, I'm going like, man, that's like to me, it's like demine. It's like going mine hunting and trying to de-arm a mine. You just never know, and when it collapses, more often than not, you just have no chance at it. Um, so Robert will be here, and we're going to be hearing his story. We want to give a shout out to our good friend Katie from Popping the Popcorn, and our good friend Steven from the House of Horrors, Mary Wilson, uh, our fellow ISC Midnighters. They're among the people down in Florida that are being hit by Hurricane Helene, and we definitely wish them the safety and safe voyages through that. Every year it seems to get worse and worse down there, doesn't it? I mean, it really does. The weather is just it's there's more hurricanes, there's more widespread damage. Places that normally wouldn't get hit are getting hit now. Um, what can you do, right? Uh, as far as us here in Michigan, I is saying that we're going to bypass fall. We're going to go probably from summer to winter. We're not going to get a fall. It's still hot as hell over here. And I hear this at 8 o'clock Eastern time. It's 76 degrees outside. It's dark, but it's 76 degrees here. That's really, really unusual. Most of the time, it's chilly here. It's starting to get chilly, but it's not. Um, Want to give a shout out too for yesterday. Holy cow! So we talked to Italian filmmaker Francisco Saia, and I think I said that right. Good for me. We talked to Francisco, and we had such a great time with Francisco. He was fantastic to talk with, um, and our chat was here, and they were so engaged. Just so it was a lot of fun, a lot of fun, and hats off to Francisco for he talked great English, very very good English for someone who doesn't speak it, and he did a great job. We talked about Italian cinema and his career, and had a blast for it. Um, just that's cool. I really enjoyed yesterday quite a bit, actually. And today, and tomorrow, we have singer Nikki Buati will be here with us, and that tomorrow show is 500 shows, 500 eight questions with. Wow, can you believe it? Can you believe it? Wow, I'm just like, wow, this sort of staggers me a little bit. 500 shows. Um, now there have been a couple of shows there where we done roundtables or we just did open mics a little bit. Um, I mean, as far as 500 interviews, no, we haven't got to there yet. But as far as 500 shows go, yes, this is the tomorrow night will mark 500, and what a great figure, and I'm super happy about that. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's really cool looking around and seeing a lot of other people doing interview shows as well. When I started this, when I started this show, out of the, I started doing this. There was only one person that was doing interviews, and sadly, and I know people are going to be shocked me here saying this, but sadly, the guy who was doing the show, the interview show, he was actually pretty good at it. He wasn't bad. If he would have stayed with it, I think he would have had great success. Uh, but I think he only ended his interview series after maybe 11 or 12 shows, and that was it. That's a shame because, like I said, he had the chops for it. Um, but a lot of people have come in and done the interview shows and are doing them really, really well. Some are just highlighting, a lot of them are highlighting fellow YouTubers. Um, some are doing outside guests, celebrity guests, like Steven from a House of Horrors. Uh, 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 and gosh, Eric from a Hey Internet, it's Eric. Our good friend Betty J. Gathers is also got an interview show going. Michelle from Makeup Mom and Son, she did a interview series a long time ago, and her series is really good. In fact, me and the Cheetah, we were on that show, and we had a blast. But things got busy for her, and so she wasn't able to do the shows for a long time. But I was over on her channel today, checking out an unboxing video, and she was saying how she was restarting her interview series. So shout out to Michelle from Makeup Mom and Son, and she's looking for people to talk to, and so if you have a good story to tell, Makeup Mom and Son. Yeah, you should go on over there and say hi. Um, who else we got out there doing this? We got Corey from Wilkie's Movies and Music. He does a very successful talk show. And of course, Karma from Lewis Acres Farm. She is doing a great interview series. In fact, she was just celebrating today. She reached milestones. She was up to 250 subs. Now she's up to 327. And so she was giving away prizes. Um, I, I was saying, what kind of prizes you got? Are you going to give away Skipper? Was this like a new celebrity cat? And unfortunately, Skipper is not being given away at this time. So I'm thinking maybe there's 500 people that they're sub to her, then she'll give away Skipper. I don't know. I mean, I should just be, because it could just be wish fulfillment. But speaking of crazy cats, this Saturday is Paladin's birthday. I'll probably be doing a little show on Saturday afternoon before our big show with Spider Dombrowski, Bailing, and Alexis Knapp. I'll probably be going up there and doing like an hour or so of Cheetah stories. All right. So we are working on October. We are working on October. Spider will be our last guest. And Nikki will be tomorrow, and then Spider will be our last guest on Saturday. Sunday we'll be heading over to Horror with Haas's channel, and we'll be talking about the Kindred and for the IFC Midnights. And so we'll be talking about that. Haas is, I tell you the truth, I don't know if it's I'm not sure if it's because we're all so really in tune with the ISC films. Like we all pick really strong movies. I mean, we all do. Ben and Mary and Haas and myself and any other Knight, Coriander, uh, Mike, American Werewolf in New Jersey, David from David Diggs. We all had a chance of doing an IFC show and talking about it, and we have never really picked a turkey yet. We picked some that were like, but an ISC movie that's rated 5, that's like an 8 or 9 for some other movies. I mean, you look at it and go, man, this is a badass movie. Yeah, Bloomhouse, yeah. Speak No Evil, yeah, yeah. Oh, Speak No Evil came out on ISC. Oh, it got released by. Oh, you didn't know that? Oh, yeah. IFC released it here on the state side. Um, but an IFC film, just a regular IFC film, if there is such a thing, it's always going to be top drawer for everybody else. Hey, Cheryl, how are you? How are you? We will be talking with uh, Robert Kundel Jr. In a few minutes, and he will be here. And this is a first for me. I've been trying to talk to small business owners, but this will be my first time where I've talked to like an inventor and entrepreneur. But like I said, Robert already works for the family business, but he came out and created this hand tool. And what's really cool about it is not only the tool's cool, and this is a tool that any van lifer or any RVer, I think really would be interested in. Really would be interested in, because this is a tool that could be used for renovations, for building out a rig. Um, yeah, I just talking about you, Corey. And so he will be here, and we'll be discussing his the tool that he invented. Now this is a first for me, and in October there's even more firsts for 8 questions with, as we will be talking with Irish fashion designer Roseanne McNamee. I have never talked about. I've never interviewed a fashion designer. Now I've talked to plenty of models, but I've never talked to someone who's actually created the clothes. Now, I have to admit, for this one, I'm not quite out of the water as one might think. Like, what do you know about fashion? Well, maybe me, maybe not so much, but my wife, oh yeah, yeah. And I might, I've always been interested in fashion. I think it's very interesting to me. Uh, and so my wife, that's what she did. She was a buyer for 2 stores. So she went around the world buying fashions for stores to sell. So you have to know a lot about fashion to know that. I have just enough rudimentary knowledge to get myself through the door, but after that, I have no idea where I'm going to go or what I'm doing. The doorbell has rang, so that means, you know what that means. That means our guest is here, and so please welcome in an innovator, a creative, an inventor, and an entrepreneur, Robert Kundel Jr. Here we go. Robert.
Hey, Patrick, how are you doing?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Excited for this show, man. I've been jazzed for this one.
Well, hopefully we live up to that.
It's going to be new for me. I've never spoken to anybody who's done as much as you have, and So this is gonna be. I think what really caught me, as much as the restore itself did,
Yeah.
is what you have planned for it afterwards. That is what hooked me into this. That's what I want to say. I want to go talk to him about this because, um, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Uh,
Not my own, but yeah.
uh, yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, like the thing is though, is like you have a like I was just saying how I'm interviewing a fashion designer next month.
Okay.
Now, a fashion designer is not someone I talk to on an everyday basis. I've had a few models on the show, and I have a friend who was once considered one of the supermodels, so to speak. She was one of the first ones. So I
Okay.
know a little bit about fashion. I mean, I know a
Right.
little bit about modeling and what. But as far as making the clothes and designing them, I know little next to nothing about it.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
hooked. But I'm hooked because I want to know,
Oh
and
yeah.
that really, I think you and I have something in common on one basis, and that is we're both very curious.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
Was that a word? Is that a word you? If someone came up to you and said, "Describe yourself in 5 words," would curious, or curiosity be one of the 5 words you would describe yourself?
So it's weird because I had taken a personality test, and there's like a 16 personality test that we do for work. Usually, I use it for hiring people to try and get a feel for who they are, where they would fit within the company. And my personality test come back as commander, right? So there's a lot of redeeming qualities with that, being real driven, could be charismatic, inspiring. There's also a lot of bad qualities. It seems seems I'm not sure about curious. Yeah, I'm always curious. I guess how things work, how things go together. I guess you would be right with that. One year, my wife had a birthday party for me, and so our whole family was gathered around and friends. And one of the games was, "Hey, what is one word to describe Robert?" Right? And my mom's word was tenacious. That's
Okay.
the word my mom used to best describe me. So I would probably tend to agree with that because if you tell me no or I can't do something, I'll probably do everything in my power to prove you wrong, right? But curiosity comes along with that as well, right?
Yeah.
So how do
I
things
think
work? How do things go together? What makes sense? Try to figure it out. I'm really a process guy. So I'm not like somebody that says I'm quote unquote like an inventor. I'm more about like a problem solver, I would say. And that's how the restore come about, solving a problem, right? I actually invented a wrench, plumbing wrench prior, and I sold it to Ridge Tool, which is in Elyria, which is the rigid tool brand. So just kind of like if I don't have it and I can't find it, I make it, right? And that's kind of how it is, right? But yeah, curious falls in that category, I believe, too. Yeah.
I think so. I think curious goes right hand in hand with tenacious
Yeah.
because tenacious. You're staying in the fight. You want to see where it's going to go. You're not going to give up.
Right.
You believe you believe in what you believe.
Yep.
And I think curiosity is the same thing. I mean, it's like I want to know what's behind the door. I want to see the wizard.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop until I do that.
Yep.
Uh, and if I can't get in, I want to know why.
Mhm.
You're always, just one question after the next. Same thing with tenacious. So I definitely think that. What would that be? You would you would see that probably word in a. Uh, oh boy. uh, what is it? Oh boy. Thoresis?
A
Not
what?
not a dictionary.
A thesaurus.
The Thoris, yes. So
Thesaurus.
yeah. Thanks. That's like brain part. So I think if you looked up the word tenacious, I definitely think that would be curiosity. I think seeker. I think would all be in that realm there.
Yeah.
Um,
It doesn't give up. Right. Yeah.
Now, what's really cool too about this is like when I was obviously doing the research here. And I was talking about your company, like you know you also have a company. You're based in Ohio,
Uh-huh.
and and then, you know, when I read that, when I was reading about the background, you know, the restored and what you had plans for it, and then I read about your company and what some of the products that you make, I wasn't really shocked at that. You know, I really wasn't shocked about some of the, like you build that, you have that container or you build that wall to protect people from trenches.
Yeah.
It's a life-saving tool.
Mhm.
That's that's not hardware. It's not,
Yep.
you know, it's designed for one thing. It's designed to save lives.
Yep.
Uh,
Absolutely.
and I wasn't surprised when I read that. I'm going like, of course it is. You know, of course this is what they do. You know, and there's two divisions in your company, but seeing that there, I'm going, of course it is, because well, the other thing too is you have such a big heart.
Yeah.
So, and I think on that, I think on that, you know, on that statement that you have a big heart. I guess we got to go back to the beginning to find out how that big heart got developed.
Yes, that's true. So for us, it's like, I guess that is that one of the questions, right? How the big heart got developed. I mean, I guess this is 8 questions, right?
Well, you're gonna find out it's slightly more than eight, but but I think you've already figured that out. Um, I'm not. Did you watch the episode that I gave you?
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yeah.
So you're probably going over there going like, well, he knocked off 8 questions. That's only took it only took 13 minutes. So what are we going to do for the other hour and a half? Uh,
Yeah.
well, we're talking. Um, so let's go back to your beginning, I guess, or maybe we should even go back a little further, and let's talk about your company start.
Okay.
You know, yeah, let's go with that with Kundel Industries.
Yeah.
Mm.
So that's great. Great question. So, my grandfather was in construction, so he had passed away before I even was born. But my father and his two brothers worked for him in construction, and they were young teenagers. I think sometimes they missed school to go help their dad in construction. So, um, when their father passed away, the brothers went into kept the construction company going, and with Kundal Construction, that's kind of how it come about in the construction industry, right? Digging sewer and water lines and laying them. And when there was like a downturn in the economy, I was just young. There was six of us, six kids, and so you got a lot of hand-me-downs. I don't know, you probably have the age like I am, where you know what tough skins were, right?
Yeah.
There's clothing that didn't ever wear out. Those usually got handed down. But so he started in when he did construction, and it kind of slowed down, took a dive. He decided he would sell some products out of Germany called Ishbeck. It's a construction, it's like a modular construction trench box, right? And he was like a one-man show over here in the US. And my dad's really not a salesperson. He knows equipment and can speak to the equipment based upon his construction background as a contractor. And he would call himself a ex backhoe operator or cable rig operator. Back in the day, there was cables to run the rigs and stuff like that. And so he wasn't selling very well apparently for this company, and so they took the rights of it off of him and gave it to this large trench box manufacturer here over in the US. So his thought was, well, I can develop and build my own trench boxes because I've been using them since I was like 14, and I know how they're used and I know how they should be built, right? To last or take the beating, right? And so he worked with a local engineer to develop a trench box and had it sub manufactured out. So that went on for a few years before he actually started manufacturing it ourselves, right? And I was 15, 16 years old at the time. And so I went down and worked at our family business, our family shop, Kundel Industries, and I'd run, you know, back in that time, I was 16, just like most boys are 16. They want to run around and stay out all night and party with their friends on the weekend and sleep in late. And, My dad's like, I don't care what you do, you're not staying home, you're coming to work. I don't care if you stand there with your nose in the corner, you're coming to work. So you go to work, you don't have the opportunity to put your nose in the corner. He puts you to work. And
Right.
and when you work for your dad, there's two of us at the time working for my father. Um, I lived at home still, so you didn't always get a paycheck.
I
You
was
got
gonna ask you, did he pay you?
yeah. Well, some weeks you didn't get a paycheck, and back then pay was like $2.35 an hour, right?
Yeah.
Back then, yeah. That was like my, we get these little envelopes and you get your check in it and stuff like that. But to me, you got to live there and you got to get fed, right? So if you didn't get a paycheck, that's okay, right? So that's kind of how it got started, building our own construction equipment. Because my grandfather was actually very inventive himself. He invented this piece of a construction equipment where it automatically digs as this blade goes out, and so it would churn up the soil and dig. So it really started with my grandfather inventing a digging machine for the construction industry. And then my father, starting with the trench boxes, and then we designed our own trench boxes and built them ourselves.
Can I ask you a question about about the trench boxes?
Yeah, sure.
Did you when you invented it, when you came up with your dad came up with it, or your grandpa, did I
Okay.
just want to know one thing. Had anybody in your family, had they known anybody who died in a trench like that, or was it just you're just selling the product?
So we didn't have there was no family members that died back then when my father really kind of started this. It was like trench boxes. There's kind of a requirement, not as big as today. Now it's like anything 4 or 5 feet. It's required by OSHA that you have this, excuse me, construction equipment like a trench box or trench shield. But he's been around that, when he was younger and people passing away and stuff like that. Believe it or not, you can get buried up just a little bit above your waist and it could kill you because when you exhale, the soil collapses in on you more and then you can't expand your lungs. So it really crushes your internal organs. So that's how most people really die from it, just it's kind of almost like a asphyxiation and stuff like that. But yeah, so he was like had 6 kids, right? And he had to feed the family, so he had to work. Um, we grew up eating, even though he worked, we got I grew up eating government cheese and powdered mashed potatoes and powdered milk. Kids today, they don't understand what that is. Like, what is that? You're like, well, our cheese come in a block that was like a foot long, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And your mashed potatoes look like dandruff.
But
But
you have to admit one thing though, honestly, and this is the truth.
yeah,
That government cheese, man, it was so good compared to what's on the shelf now.
oh yeah, yeah,
Oh my gosh, macaroni and cheese. Oh, whenever my mom would fix that,
yeah,
or grilled cheese sandwich, it's like, what do we have for dinner? We're gonna have, tomato soup and grilled cheese.
yeah.
Well,
Oh yeah,
that was a party.
yeah. Tomato soup and grilled cheese. That's the thing right there. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
You have like grilled bologna sandwiches. You
Oh, yep, exactly.
know,
Yeah, I'm with you. The powder milk was probably the toughest thing for me. It's like, but you know what? But you had to drink it, so that's what you did. And then
yeah, that's all
on the
you
bottom of the glass would be all the crust that still didn't get mixed up. So no, I'm with you.
yeah, that's kind of how we got started in building our excavation equipment, like the trench boxes and stuff like that. So yeah,
Well, I'm glad it wasn't out of someone you lost somebody you cared about.
yeah,
But still, I'm sure your father, when he's standing there and he's seeing somebody die in front of him, is probably going like, "Yeah, that's probably something what can I do to stop that?"
yep,
And the thing is, the impression I got, and this is so, most of the time, you always see these people come out like on Shark Tank or what have you. They're there to make cash money.
yep,
They're
that-
there. Here's my this is but I got the strong impression, Robert, that for you and your family, for you and your company, it's never been about the money. It's always been about in service of man.
Yep. Yeah, it's why we build. I said most of our stuff says we build safety above and below ground. So we care about the employees because we were those employees. Like my father was in a ditch, right? So he wants to produce the best trench box available that you could buy to protect him, because there's people's family in it. It's a guy's his kid's mom or dad is in the ditch, right? Or brother or sister or aunt or uncle. And when we build cranes, it's the same thing. My son, I build it like I could be under it, or my son or a family member is working under it. So that's how we build equipment. So we're really a company that we try to serve the people, right? It's like a servant company, right? And so we try to build the best product available. We put our name on it. It's just not a globalist type company. It's privately held, right? It's by our family. So we try to build the best thing we can and serve our community and, give back, as best we can.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, when your dad was, when he founded the company, um, did he himself give back? Um, like, because you had to see that somewhere, like with the restore, which we'll talk about in a few here.
Yeah.
But you're taking the profits of your invention, and you're not channeling it inside any sort of lifestyle, or you
No.
know you're channeling it toward, again, toward the good of man. You're channeling it to help various churches or wherever there are. And I'm wondering, did that come from your family? Did that desire to help others, was that something that your mom and dad instilled into you and into your core values?
Um, we've always, my dad likes serving people through his vocation. That's his point, right? So he wants to serve people through his skill and craft or what he could produce. That's his idea of serving. My father loves to work. I guess for the giving back, and I guess that was kind of my thing, right? Um, God just like really changed me, and so has become my heart. So my heart is to do the will of God as best possible, right? Serving people. God called us to love others as we would love ourselves, and treat our neighbor as ourselves, and serve others, right? And put others before ourselves, and not think of ourselves as any better than anybody else, right? So
Right.
that's what he's called us to do. And so that's been my heart, right? And so whether it's working at my full-time job for Kundel Industries, I am COO of Kundel Cranes, the crane division of our company. So I run that division, and we make products for SpaceX, Honda, Toyota, Tesla, all kind of big companies, but also smaller companies. And I'm also on the board for the Warren Family Mission. So you probably don't know this. I'm not sure if it's on my website, but Warren Family Mission is like a rescue mission in our local city, and they give back to the community. They serve homeless people, drug addicted, alcohol addicted, abused people. Everything's free to the community. All the food's free, all the clothing's free. If we get houses donated, they get donated back out to the community. That's free. Free year-long programs that these people can enroll in to get off drugs or alcohol. So I'm on the board. I'm president of the board for the Warren Family Mission, and that's all volunteer work,
Yeah.
right? So with the crane sales at Kundel Industries, we give back like 1%, I believe 1.5% of every sale goes to the Warren Family Mission support. So not just my tool having a certain nonprofit to give to, our family business has a nonprofit as well. So yeah, it goes back to the local mission within our communities to support them. So it's really been, and that's the division I run. So it's really been on my heart to serve people. Outside of our business, my father likes to serve people kind of within our business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. 1% to 1.5%. Knowing the volume of your business, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's
A lot of
substantial
money.
money going to the community, local community, right? But they
Yeah,
don't, so they don't operate, everything that they get is from local and private donations. There's no state or federal government funding to this mission. So I've been with them probably 20 years now. 20 years. When we started out, we had one building. Now we have 5 buildings, and we serve thousands of people during Christmas and Easter. And my wife volunteers at one of the divisions of the War and Family Missions called the Hannah's House for drug and alcohol addicted women. It gives them a faith-based 1-year program to go through, and she goes there and usually twice a week volunteers. They usually do some sort of exercise routine, get the girls kind of up and motivated and stuff like
right.
that. So yeah,
So, let's go back to when you're a teenager, when you're working for your dad, and when did you? I mean, were you always like worked with your hands? I mean, were you type of guy, a teen that would see a car, take out this engine, and put it back together to see, like I said, to see how it works? Curiosity. Were you one of those that just wanted to see how it worked and see if you could improve it better?
yeah,
Um, how old were you when you started doing that? When you realized that, yeah, that engine's not working. Why is that?
yeah.
So how old were you when that came upon you?
I was probably mid-teens, right? So I would have a vehicle and something wouldn't work. Um, and I didn't, at first, my brother was kind of inspirational to me in the fact that the car was sitting in the garage for a couple of weeks or so. He's like, if you take that down the dealership, they're just going to have a 16-year-old kid working on that car for you. Right. And I was like, okay, that's it. I'm going to do it myself. So, tear it into it, figure out what the problem is. And it was a simple problem that I fixed. And I was more of like, I like to take stuff apart to see how it works. Yeah, I'm very curious. I'm very driven. Um, people think, well, he's like cheap, but I'm not cheap. I just like, if something's broke and I can fix it, I'm going to fix it. I don't like throwing stuff out to throw it in a landfill. If
Right.
I can fix it and make it work, I'll fix it, and that's what I do. Even now, I've fixed my dishwasher, my dryer, my refrigerator, my TV, a microwave, anything that goes wrong in the house, furnace, hot water tank, all that stuff. It's just in me. I'm like driven to fix it. I figured if somebody can put it together, I can take it apart and replace a part, right? Or figure out. It's like I'm always triggered to figure out why did it break, what caused it to break, and if it's a part that I can solder or fix, I'm going to fix it. My wife has a sweeper we had when we got married. It was like we've had it for over 20 years, and it has a different wheel, it's got a different motor, new motor brushes on it. Like things just don't match. The on button doesn't match. I swear she throws it down the steps when I go to work. It's like our Frankenstein. But it did start when I was younger, right? I love taking things apart, seeing how they work. I
Yeah.
love watching the show, like how it's made. I'm sure like every guy loved watching the show how it's made to understand. You
Sure.
see these machines doing this work. It's just kind of really inspiring, right?
Yeah. No, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
Now the car that you worked on that your brother said that some kid will just end up fixing it. Was that his car, or was that just a car or was that your car? And do you think he was just poking you to get you to fix his car?
Yeah. No, it's my car. It was his car, and I bought it off of him. And it was like I was 16 years old. It was like a little Mazda RX-7. So it was like a little sports car for a teenager, right? Um, I wanted this to be like my older brother at the time, right? He had a big muscle car, right? Back in the day, when I was in school, kids had muscle cars,
Sure.
and now they're like unaffordable.
Yeah, they really
Back
are.
then, it's like you had $3,000, you had a pretty decent muscle car, right? But yeah, so no, he had a muscle car, and I had his old car, which was a little Mazda RX-7. But yeah, it was turned out to be a simple fix, and I just let it sit in the garage for weeks until I just said, "That's it. I'm gonna do something about this." So yeah, I like to tinker with stuff, see how that works, see how it goes together. Can I improve it? Right? I've done stuff where I've improved stuff. Like we live kind of out in a rural area, so we have a septic system, and um, that you have to pay to have it tested and certified and cleaned and all that stuff, and clean the filters. And I'm like, I don't like paying somebody to do something that I could do. So I mean, I even maintain our own septic, which might sound gross, but to me, it's like, if I can do it, and if I can save myself $250 and do something myself, and it can take me 20 minutes or half an hour, I'm going to do it. Right. Crazy thing was, like, I was like the only one in our county that was trained as a individual homeowner to maintain their own septic. Right. So I got like, I pushed the envelope. Right. I'm tenacious. I didn't want to give up, but this is kind of like another invention thing. Right. It's kind of a problem solver. It's weird because with the way our septic tank works, there's like a holding tank, then there's a tank with a filter, and you got to pull this whole cylinder out. Well, this cylinder is full of affluent, and they typically would pump it from one tank to the other to pull it out. Well, when I was trying to do that, I couldn't get it out, right? And I had a ladder and a come along trying to pull this thing out. It was just too heavy. It's full of fluids. So when I finally got it out, I drilled a hole in the bottom of this big cylinder, plastic cylinder, and I put a check valve in it. So now when you go to lift it up, all the stuff runs out the bottom, but nothing can come up through the top of the filter, which is the way it's designed. So now you can pull this thing out with one hand. And I mentioned it to the factory, Singular, after I moved in. And they actually took my idea and implemented that across all their filtration units to put a check valve in them. So now they don't have to pump fluid out from one to the other. They just pull it out with one hand. So it's like, I'm kind of like a problem solver guy. Yeah. So I like to think
They
things.
didn't forget you. They didn't forget you for that, did they?
Nope. I do once in a while. I have to call them up for something, and I'm like, I'm the guy that invented that thing that you guys implemented. They're like,
I mean, they took care of your, they gave you a little something for your innovation.
nope.
Ain't that something? Ain't
But so,
that's so to me that's so dishonest.
yeah, it's like,
Why wouldn't you go ahead and, like, wow, this guy just say just, countless of money. I want to
yeah,
make sure, I want to go out there. I want to drive out there personally and tell him, hey, thank you.
yeah,
Here we go.
right.
Wow, just nothing, huh? What was the company again?
Singular, Singular, something like that. I would have been happy with free service. But so if I wouldn't have, took the time to do it myself, I wouldn't have found the problem, right? So unless you get into the weeds and the nuts and bolts of doing the actual function yourself or work yourself, you're not going to figure out what the solution is unless you're addressed with the problem, right? So to me, I don't. Some people see it as problems. I kind of see it as a challenge, right? So
Right.
challenge I can overcome, right?
Now,
So
I'm just curious about one thing. In dealing with that company, did you learn the value of copyright right then and there? Was that your first time you that, like, I invented this, I got to protect it, and so I'm going to go down there and make it and do a copyright. Was that the first time that you were aware of something that you created that needed to be protected?
yeah, it kind of like opened my eyes, like, wow, I did this for myself, but there's a lot of people that could benefit from this, right? And I'm not trying to like extort money,
No.
or say like, hey, I'm kind of like, hey, if I can help you, I'll help you, right? So there's a couple guys that have helped with inventions, like connecting them with the right manufacturing and people, and there's a couple that will be coming to market. One in the power tool industry, probably in 2025. And I run across people that are like, they call themselves inventors. I don't call myself inventor, more of a solutions guy. I think if you're call yourself an inventor, you're kind of kidding yourself. You come across something and you have a solution, but then by God's grace, He's given you an idea, right? And so a lot of guys will take that and they'll spend all their money on it, or they'll start trying to come up with all these different crazy inventions all the time, and they waste a lot of their time and efforts instead of focusing on something that could really impact humanity and the community, right? Because they want to chase this thing like they're an inventor, right? My thought is you find out how you can contribute to society, and then run with that, right? And improve lives versus chasing notoriety for being a quote unquote inventor type.
I
But
I talked to a games creator, and it's interesting is that how you're saying how a lot of them have so much, like I guess that would be an inventor, but he had so many ideas for his game. I mean, if you go back and you listen to it, he's got all this, and I'm just imagining, well, like his brain must be going into overdrive. He's sitting there, and to me, it's like I just want to get the one thing done. I want to get the core thing done.
yeah,
And everything else after that, I can apply to the finished product. But sometimes I think sometimes people, they have so many things going. It's so it's hard to focus to complete that
yep,
one task.
yep, you're
Um,
100% right. There's a lot of guys that chase it, and they need guys like you to help them stay focused on, hey, let's focus on getting this one thing done and bring it to market, and then we'll focus on these other things. I mean, believe me, I have tons of ideas every day. It's not just about product; it's about process within our manufacturing business. If somebody poses like a challenge or they would consider a problem to me, I'm up for the challenge, whether it's process or whether it's product or design or anything. It's just kind of how my brain works. Like I take things from different industries and I kind of just morph them together within an idea. I'm like, well, this works in this industry. Why can't we use this for this, right? So it was like a couple weeks ago or about a month ago, we were trying to clean steel beams at our factory, and so the guy, I mean, obviously we have our restorer tool, right, used in the business. But there's beams, and so you can't get into the corner or radius of the I-beam. And so we had some guys using these big 7-inch angle grinders and a wire cut brush inside the channels of the beam. And that's pretty dangerous, right? An angle grinder is a very dangerous tool. And 7-inch angle grinder will make your forearm feel like Popeyes in about 2 minutes, just
right,
because the rotation of it in the cup. And then there's wires that are flying out. So I went down, well, I actually ordered a wire cut brush, and I attached it to the end of a string trimmer. I've seen it used before for cleaning brick, but I used it and I cleaned beams. And as fast as I could walk on top of that beam with the wire brush, it cleaned the beam right off. Nobody's probably ever done that with a weed whacker and a wire brush, but it worked amazing for us. So I'm like, okay, I see a problem. Now I'm going to come up with a solution. But there's solutions out there every day. So I'm taking stuff from like the lawn and garden industry and applying it to cleaning steel beams, right? So that's just kind of how my brain works. I just kind of those things click together like a puzzle for me, if that makes sense.
no, no, it totally makes sense, and I'm not surprised that you came up with an innovative solution either.
Yeah.
What was the first thing that you, after you fixed you mentioned about you put things in your car, there's some things that going on in the car. Did you make, like, some people can take a car and then they can put a different motor in, they'll fit a different motor in, they'll fit a different part in. Was your car the first time that you show that innovativeness, as far as, okay, this is a 4-cylinder, how can I make it run like a 6-cylinder? Well,
Yeah.
here's what I can do. Was that your first testing board? Your testing
Uh,
board for.
I think for me, it was at work, just because with our family business, you have to work to keep the family business afloat. My car was a means of transportation for getting there. And if I was to take it apart, my dad would probably be pretty upset because
Okay.
he needs me to get to work, right?
Right.
So the innovation really started at our family business, right? Because we're a family of innovators. We're always creating stuff. It's kind of how our crane products come about. It was our own creation, right? And so I just created things for around the shop. Like if you need to create a fixture or a jig or something to make something, right? You just kind of we didn't have the money to buy it, so you just made it. I'm friends with Jimmy DeResta, and he kind of is the same way. It's like you don't have it, so you just make it, right? And so we kind of like think the same way there, right? And so we had a fabricating facility, so there's a lot of metal and equipment at your disposal to basically build anything you want. So I have some things that I've never patented, I've created and never sold, never pursued. It just your time gets I have two jobs, and I've had two jobs for like the last 8 years. I've been with our family business for 37 and doing this restore business for like last 8 years. So between them, it monopolizes your time pretty good with other things I got going on. But I think really it started back when I was 16, I was outside using an oxyacetylene torch, cutting steel tubing in half or cutting holes out of it, right? Not every 16-year-old kid can say that, right? I
No.
was in our shop running press brakes or bending steel or cleaning steel or shearing steel or something like that or welding, right? So you got to work, right? And you got to support your family. And my dad likes to innovate through business, and that's what he pushed on me, right? Innovate through our business because now you support not only our family business, we help support the families that work for us or work with us, right? Because you're responsible. I'm responsible not just for my family, my immediate family's income. I'm responsible to those guys in the floor, right? The guys in the office, the ladies in the office. I'm responsible for them to their families, right? So they can earn a living. Sometimes you have to make the hard calls and hard decisions for the betterment of the whole company, right? Because there's families that are depending on me, to make things
How,
work.
how many people work at Kundel?
We've got between 55 and 60 people.
It's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot of families that depend on you to make sure because you gotta, you're doing anything from marketing, handling anything from marketing to the end where customer service, the customers already got the product. So I'm responsible from the beginning to end of the crane company, right? So it can be challenging, right? Because everything falls on me. Every operation has to be operating. And to me, I try to run it like a machine, right? So if my piece is having problems, I try and fix that piece or help that piece, right?
I'm thinking that your company right now is probably seeing a big influx of sales, probably in the last couple of years, because of the infrastructure bill being passed and through Congress and President Biden. So I'm sure you're seeing that. A lot of people are like, "Hey, I can build stuff now. I can, or we need stuff because we're working on all this infrastructure. We need cranes and we need trench boxes." So I'm sure business has been rather outstanding for you the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we were stuck. We kind of plateaued for a long time. 08, 09, the economy was garbage and we kind of like barely struggled through. But, it's nice for us. We have the crane line and the trench box line. So when you're hitting it with maybe you're slow on the crane side for manufacturing, you're hitting it for the construction industry. Or when the construction industry is slow towards the cold months, you've got the crane industry that's picking up and they're buying stuff Q3 and Q4, for the following year. So kind of goes hand in hand with that. So I think for us, we were stuck years ago at like a certain dollar amount for many, many years. And it's a different approach. So we sell a lot to dealers, crane wise, right? So I finally got out of like just operation mode necessarily and thought like CEO mode, right? My father is like the CEO, but you have to understand finances, right?
Right.
With the business. And so for us, we're always selling through distributors and dealers, and they're getting 30% off, and they're stretching your funds. So you have to have capital up front, right? And then when you have this capital up front, you have to build this product, and then you ship it to them, and they don't pay for 60 or 90 days. So you have a lot of capital for these cranes. I mean, you could have a crane 20, 50, 100, $150,000, right? And so you have to have a lot of capital, or have a lot of money, a line of credit with the bank you draw from, then you sell it, and then when you get paid, you eventually pay that line of credit back down. So we're always borrowing from the line of credit, paying down the line of credit, borrowing from the line of credit, paying it down. And I'm like, this is kind of crazy. I thought,
Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
yeah. And it's like, I'm like, we need to have our own internal line of credit. I mean, I can get away from the bank and having a line of credit from them. So I turned it around, because what happened is all these companies had our capital, right? Our capital that was on a line of credit in their bank, because they're holding payment for 60 to 90 days, right? Because say they have it in product, right? Product is money, right? Product is labor, labor is money. Basically a business is buying and selling labor, right? So how much can you buy your labor for, and how much can you sell it for? There's basically a product or a service somewhere in between there, right? But that's basically what it is. Once you understand that, it's like, okay, my labor for my workforce is X amount. I need to sell it. How much can I sell that product for based upon the labor, or what should I dedicate that labor to do? I could have labor produce something that they're really making me like $25 an hour, that labor, and it's not even justifying their pay. Or I can have them making a product that earns $300 an hour, right? So understanding that. So what I did is, like, I said, okay, instead of just selling to dealers, now I'm going to sell direct. Okay, so now I've got a lot more work to do dealing with the end customer. But typically, if I sold to you, let's say, for example, and you were my dealer, and you're selling it, and you're making the 30% margins, right? And then you're paying me in 90 days. And I'm like, okay, well, Patrick's in this town, but he's not in this town, right? So in this town where this other customer is, I'm going to sell direct. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer ABC company a discount. Maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 15% off, right? Versus they're normally used to paying list price. So now this end customer is going to get 10, 15% off. But here the kicker is, I'll give you 10 to 15% off end customer, but I want paid in advance because I'm building you a custom product. So now I'm getting my money up front. All my cash is coming up front. All my capital is coming up front. Instead of me extending capital through my dealer network and then paying as they get their money, I'm selling direct. That customer, like these companies like Tesla or GM or Honda or Toyota or whoever I'm dealing with, they have capital in the bank, right? They already have money set aside to pay for product. They just need to release it. And so it doesn't really matter to them if they release it now or 90 days. If their accountant knows that he can get 15% off that deal and save $15,000 or $10,000 buying that crane, and he doesn't care if he gives it up now or 60 days from now, he'll give it up now, right? So now I get all my money up front. So now I've got their capital in my bank. So all these products I'm building, since they're custom, I can get my money up front. So now that turns your cash flow cycle totally around, which kind of really changed our company, right? Instead of being like struggling because our construction side was dealing with contractors, and you're absolutely right. Rob Peter to pay Paul, that's exactly how contractors work. They're worried, they're getting your money from the job they're going to do to pay for the product that they used on the last job, right? So they're always behind the 8 ball. So for us with contractors and our construction equipment, it's the same thing, so they want to pay late and they don't want to pay on time. They want to drag it out. As they get their new money for the new project, they'll pay you, right, for the old project. But for the cranes, it's a different game. So now
it's almost like a Ponzi scheme, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's like they're paying in advance to save money, right? So now I've got their product is committed to being built. right? Because you have to spend a lot of money. Some of these cranes cost a lot of money to build, right? But the nice thing is, it changed our cash flow. So you change your cash flow in your company, you can be successful then, right?
Right.
If you're, that's how Walmart kind of works. Let's say Walmart buys from you, Patrick, you made this widget. We're going to buy it from you and we're going to pay you in 90 days. Patrick's excited because he sold 10,000 widgets. Well, they're not paying you for 90 days. Before 90 days are up, they've sold your widgets 3 times over. So every time, they've sold your product 3 times before they have to pay you once, right? That's kind of how they operate, right? They sell your product is sold through before they even owe you money, right? So it's like almost like free product they're selling because they don't have any money extended. But it's
Right.
it's cash flow, understanding how cash flow works within the company, and you can make it work, right?
Now when that happened, when all of a sudden now you're going out of town, you're doing sales direct, and all of a sudden you're getting this money coming in. Did that the contractor or the business that was making you wait, all of a sudden they look around and they're seeing you go around them to selling product. Do they come back and sit there and say, "Well, wait a minute, you're giving those guys 15% off. I
Mm.
do the same for you if you pay me. But if you want to sit there and drag my ass out for 90 days, well, we have a signed deal. We're going to do what we're going to do."
Hmm.
And
Yeah, I mean, you always run into things where you got some conflicts, but usually the country's pretty big.
right,
So, and usually people, if it's crane related, they work in a given territory, right? So they're probably, um, within, so many counties within a state, right? So there's a lot of opportunities out there and stuff like that where dealers aren't even necessarily in the mix. And, I heard one time I don't know if it was a YouTube video or something like that, and this guy's like, eventually your competition's going to start selling direct, and you're going to miss out, and they're going to beat you. I thought, well, that's not going to happen to me because I'm going to figure out a way to help my family's business turn the financial side around, right? So it's another thing for me. It's about solving a problem, right? Or that challenge of cash flow, understanding how it works and how I could benefit the customer and benefit our employees, right? So that was my challenge. So it's not just inventing something, it's understanding the problem and coming up with a solution. It's kind of like how my brain works, right? So I'm kind of driven that way.
now, did you go to college as well after you got out of high school, or were you just pretty much self taught, pretty much all the way through?
Yeah, actually, I was lucky to graduate. I don't think my teachers would want me back. I'm one of those students that was like, they would say, "Oh, he was smart, but he never applied himself." Right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wasn't a school. My sister would cry if she couldn't go to school. If she was sick, she'd cry. I would cry if I had to go to school. Right? And I don't know if it was. I don't know if you were like me, but I'd always pretend to be sick and not want to go to school, and I'd be like at my mom's door in the middle of the morning, and like, I'm sick. I can't go to school. She's like, okay, you can stay home, but you're not going anywhere this weekend. I'm like, well, I'll try to go. And then I just figured it out. When I got in high school, I would just go to school and then skip. Right? I would
right,
leave, and then just be home in time for the phone call to hit your house and to answer. It says, hey, Robert wasn't at school today. So, no, I
right.
wasn't. So I was lucky to graduate high school and never went to college. I was just kind of like, I was thrown into it, at an
Not
early age.
everybody, not everybody is designed to go to college. That's for sure. I mean, a lot of times you hear that people, well, you didn't go to school. Well, you know what though? Some people aren't designed. They're not wired for that.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes like I always I remember taking a fire science class in college, and our teacher asked us, says, who would I rather hire right now? Would I rather hire a guy that came out of school for 4 years with a degree in fire
Yeah.
science, or would I rather hire the guy with 4 years of practical experience?
Yeah.
I'm going to take the practical experience guy because he
Yeah.
can always learn as he goes.
Absolutely.
A guy coming out of there, he's raw, green, and thinks, and everything's in the books.
Yep.
Ain't always happening in real life.
Yep. You're
Or
100% right.
it's supposed to go this way. The fire's supposed to go this way,
Yeah.
and yet it's coming from behind you. Well, that's not what it said in the book. That's not what
Yeah.
the book said. Well, so yeah. So so you turned your business around.
Yep.
Now at this time, was this before you started with the restore? Once you turned your business, the cash flow, and you got to be where your business is starting to not only make its money, but starting to keep the money.
Yep.
Now, what's this? Yeah, you're so right about that. What's that saying? Wimpy. I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a
Hamburger.
burger day, right? It's like,
Yeah.
so here you are now. The business is
Same thing. You're exactly right.
yeah.
Wimpy has been saying that for years. We just never knew it.
No, Wimpy is an American is an American business icon.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. There's movies out there. I love the movie Tommy Boy. I was a big, Chris Farley fan. And that movie Tommy Boy was an excellent, excellent sales movie. People don't realize that, but if you really study sales and understand sales, that was an excellent, excellent movie. But it's stuff. There's hidden gems like that out there, like you said, like Wimpy. It's like that. That's a business model, right? And
yeah,
Wimpy was saying it every day just for a hamburger, and we laughed at it. But you're absolutely right. That's a business model.
yeah.
So yeah, there's stuff out there all the time. It just people don't recognize it. And
To me, I think one of the weirdest things, the weirdest dynamics I've ever seen, and because we have our local station, our channel, our Fox station, and they have a segment called Hall of Shame, and I'm sitting there watching this. So I watch it religiously, and it was always about these people hiring somebody to like fix their deck or concrete, and
uh,
the guy would sit there and ask for the money up front.
yeah,
To me, I'm going like, that's fundamentally wrong. It's like I'm supposed to pay you after you're done, not
yeah,
before.
yeah,
Yeah, pay us five. Why am I paying you anything
yeah.
before you do anything?
I agree.
It's like, well, we have to get the parts. That's not me. You have to get the parts yourself. You have to do that. That's why when we sign a contract, like I'm going to hire you,
Yeah,
but I'm going to hire you to fix it. It's like okay, well now we signed it and you went out there and spend $2,000 on supplies. I'm going to
mhm,
turn around and say no, I changed my mind. No,
yeah,
that's why you have a contract to protect you.
yeah,
Same thing when I see people go ahead and they do that and they say well, yeah, I paid him $8,000 for the deck and he took off. Of
yep,
course he did.
yeah.
Because it's like
I
well
would.
why
I'm the same way. I wouldn't do that personally. Business is a little bit different when they have business accounts and you have businesses that have been in business a long time and there's that
right.
trust there. But you are 100% right. I've had work done and they're like, well, we need payment. I'm like, well, I need to see something before I
Yeah.
make payment, right? Yeah.
Right. I mean, you go ahead, and you go ahead and go to Home Depot or wherever you need to go to. You got whatever you need. You come back, show me the receipt. Show me
Yeah.
all the supplies that you've listed here that you needed. Like you'll need this, you'll need this. Okay, great. When you come back from Home Depot, I want to see those same products that you told me that I'm going to need. I'm going
Right.
to see that all of it, and then
Yeah.
with that done, then I'll pay you for what you just spent.
Yep.
But I'll be damned if I hand over like $8,000 for a deck. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and get some. I'm gonna be on the Hall of Shame. I'm gonna be the guy going like, "Well, I gave him $8,000 and he never came back."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like God, it kills me because it's like you would think after all that people would get the hang of it. Like,
Yeah.
don't pay for anything until after the service is done. you
Yep.
know
Yep.
so okay, so now that you got that done, let's talk about the restore because this is what we're here for.
Yeah.
um yeah, because this is going to be really cool. And so talk to me a little bit about how the idea came about. What drove you to come up with that idea for the restore?
Yeah, great question. So we have our family business, right, that I've been working at since I was 16. And so my side of the business is the industrial products side, right? So overhead cranes, gantry cranes, jib cranes, lift assist devices, stuff like that. Well, we used to back when we started back in 97, but in 08, 09, and stuff like that, we're getting pipe and beams that are structural beams, and business is tough. It's a family business, right? If you stay in business more than so many years, it's hard to believe that you've been in business more than 5 years to survive, right? A lot of companies don't. But so we would get a lot of structural pipe and beams in, and they would have surface rust on them, right? And so we had to clean them off before we could weld on them, right? And before we could paint them. So what happens is with an angle grinder and a cup brush, that's how typically we're doing it. But cup brush is basically like a donut, right? So it's a ring. And so when you're using this angle grinder, you're not necessarily, you're cleaning the beam or you're cleaning the pipe, but you're basically taking that rust and debris and throwing it all over your facility, right? And so instead of being in a small concentrated area, like all the rust on a pipe, now the rust is in the air and it's out throughout your whole shop. Now you got to go clean your whole shop up, right? Instead of just cleaning it right there at the source. But so it would take forever because some of these pipe would be like 27 feet long, 12, 14-inch diameter. And so it'd take hours of cleaning a pipe. Now, my customer doesn't want to pay me to clean a pipe, right? They don't want to pay me all the hours it's going to take me to clean this pipe because I couldn't afford like a shot glass pipe. And so I thought, man, I need to clean these pipe or beams up for ourselves and be cost effective. And I thought, man, it'd be nice if I had an upright sweeper, if I could have put a wire brush in that and I could just sweep these beams off, right? And the sweeper would sweep up the debris as I'm hitting them with the wire brush. And so I thought, that would be ideal for the tops of beams and bottoms of beams, but it won't work on pipe. So I was thinking, what did the sweeper industry do? Well, the sweeper industry developed a handheld dirt devil, right? So you would use a little handheld dirt devil. You get on your steps and, you would be able to clean off small areas and stuff like that. It'd be a lot more nimble. You could use it with one hand. So I thought, okay, I'm going to see what I could do with the dirt devil. So I went home and took my wife's dirt devil apart to see if I could put a custom like a wire brush in there to sweep off the beams and pipe. And it's just made for like minimal clearance, right? And so, I don't think to this day I ever put it back together.
Oh,
But that was my inspiration, right? My inspiration was a handheld dirt devil. So I thought, if I can make something like that, I can use it to go around edges and corners of beams, and it's just a single hand thing. And so since I couldn't use the dirt devil, I thought, we have a factory, a shop, metal shop. So I thought, I'll just make my own somehow, right? So I ran AutoCAD, and so I started doing drawings at age 16, and so I thought, I'm going to make my own. And then so I needed a power source, so a motor, something to drive this, and I didn't want to spend a couple $100 trying to figure out what motor to get or what to get. So I thought, how can I get a cheap power source or cheap motor? And I thought, well, a drill has a motor in it, and there's lots of drills out there, right? So I'm thinking outside the box, right? And
like
so,
Milwaukee or Ryobi, that type of motor.
yeah, well, then I thought, what's like the most mass-produced power source out there, or one of the most mass-produced power sources out there that I could get, and it would be cost-effective? Well, that's an angle grinder, right? Angle grinder at Harbor Freight was $19. So I went down to Harbor Freight, bought an angle grinder for $19, ripped the head of it off, the gear head, all of a sudden I have a $19 power source, $19 motor to make whatever I want. So now I took that, designed and built a little frame for it, 2 timing pulleys, a timing belt, and now I have a frame, and so I needed a drum or a wheel to clean. So there's companies that'll custom wind you a brush. It's almost like the strip brush that you would see on the back of a door. That's like a little sweeping bristles, right? The little black bristles that are on like a factory door.
Right,
Um,
right.
that's just a strip brush. Well, these companies will take that strip brush and they'll coil it over, round it over a core, right? And so now you have a drum form of it. And that's how they make them. So I found a company up around Cleveland, which was probably like an hour from me. And I gave them the dimensions of what I wanted. And it cost me like $150. And they custom wound a wire wheel brush for me. And so I had this timing belts, timing pulleys, because I built cranes with timing belts, timing pulleys, so I knew how it worked. And so I had the frame, and I thought for the front handle, I'm just going to put like a handle that I could grab onto. And then the back of it, I thought the back handle, I'm going to use like the sweeper industry did. The sweeper industry uses like an upright sweeper, right? Like a little canister one. The debris is sucked up through your hand, right? Because it goes, the wand is in your hand. It sucks up and goes in the canister through your hand, right? The hose is in your hand, so I thought I'm going to do the same thing. So the back handle was a tube, like an exhaust tube. And my goal was to try and figure out a way to get the hot motor out of your hand. So that was a challenge to me, because typically when you use an angle grinder, you have a hot motor in your hand, and
Yeah.
your hand's really holding that thermal heat or thermal energy in, which is actually worse for the motor, right? So it's not allowing it to cool because your hand's keeping it hot. Then your hand's getting hot because the motor's getting hot. So it's like your hand's making the motor hot and the motor's making your hand hot, right? And so I thought, so I need to figure out a way to get that motor out of my hand. And so my thought is, I'm going to put it on top of the roller and in line, right? Here's the roller, and I put the motor on top. If I could put the motor on top of the roller and in line with it, it's going to take the motor out of my hand, right? So now I don't have any hand fatigue from that. And the motor actually does the work for me, because the motor's got weight and it'll help push down on the drum or the roller. And so the goal was to have the front and the back of the tool as balanced as possible. So
How
now
many
it's
how
like
many how many prototypes did you make?
one
Wow,
prototype.
really? Just the
Yeah,
one?
yeah, one prototype. Yeah, I mean, Dyson's like, oh, I did 5,001 prototypes before I did this, right? Well, he copied a stinking cyclone vacuum, industrial vacuum on top of a building. The big industrial cyclone sweepers that are on buildings for factories. He
Right.
just, he just made that in a personal form, right? And that's all he did. He took that same technology and put it into a handheld, something some people can use in their house, but it's the same technology. Well, he did 5,001. Well, I did one. I built one prototype, and the guy that was helping me, he was a tool and die maker from Delphi Packard Electric, and he helped me build it. And he took it home, and he had an old engine block, and he used it on the engine block, and he called me up, and he had this like little flip phone, right?
Okay.
So he's like, you wouldn't believe this. This thing works amazing. And it's taken all this rust and debris off of this engine block and cleaning it up with this brush. I still have the video. I mean, it is from like a flip phone, the video. And then you could see the debris or wind flying behind. And then he connected it to a shop vac, and it sucked all the debris up, right? Because the back handle, my thought is, I'm going to make it like a handheld dirt devil. I'm going to sweep and collect the debris right at the surface, right? Address it right at the surface. So the way the drum works, it's always kicking debris off, right? So it's always addressing new material. That's why it's so much more efficient than a belt sander or drum sander. They kind of trap debris in
Yeah.
between the surface, right? Here's the sandpaper, here's the surface. They trap debris in there. then the debris becomes a barrier between the wood surface and your sandpaper because now it's just floating debris there. So if you
Right.
could remove that debris, you're always addressing new wood or new surface, right? So the restorer drum kind of like it's like throwing mud off a tire, right? It's always trying to get to the new material, right? Versus
Right.
uh, orbital sander, just basically, as soon as it cuts the first surface of debris, now that's just created a barrier between your sandpaper and your surface. And then it starts just vibrating and getting hot, then it sticks to your sandpaper. So that's where it's very inefficient. I mean, Festool products work better specifically because the dust collection, it's always removing that dust and debris. So,
So you're always getting a clean surface.
right, absolute. You're always addressing a clean surface or just on the edge of clean surface. So that's kind of where my inspiration come from is a handheld dirt devil, and I built the first prototype that way. So yeah, it's for our family business. That's basically what I built it for originally.
So once you got it done, and you and your co-designer, is it safe to call him a co-designer, or is he just a test pilot?
Yeah, it was just a test pilot. Is a friend of mine that worked with us. He's passed away from COVID about a year and a half ago.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
Yeah, longtime family friend. Yeah, he was just happy to see it come to pass, right? So yeah, no, it took 7 years to come to market. So it's not something you do and then hope it happens or works out and you spend 4 months on it. It's not that way. If you want to compete against these big guys in this market and bring something to market and make it happen, it's a long road. Even if they took your idea and ran with it, it's a 2-year product road. So it's not an overnight thing. You got to be in it for the long haul. So
Um, so after you tested it and it worked, so what was next? Down the road, what is the very first thing that once you decide, like once you knew the restorer had done, all that you required of it. This is what I was looking for. This is what I require from it, and it did it. So what's the next step from that? Is it then to go ahead and draw schematics and copyright it, to protect it?
yeah, so it's a great question. So what I did, um, a lot of inventors spend guys that invent or create something, right? They spend a lot of money trying to patent their invention, and maybe it's really not worth it to the mass market, right? So, what are you going to put? I know a buddy of mine spent over $100,000 trying to patent some roofing products, and he didn't get the patent, right? And so you could spend a lot of money pursuing something that only interests you, right? So you got to be smart about your money. Don't let the idea of invention fool you and suck your wallet dry, if that makes sense, right? So
Makes
you got to
sense.
use your head, right? So you got to know it's like you got to know when to hold them or know when to fold them, like Kenny Rogers says, right?
Right.
So, but so for me, I took it home and I got a drum and I got some sandpaper sleeves and I used it and it stripped the finish off my deck in seconds. And I
Wow,
was like,
that's so cool. That's so neat.
yeah, I
That's
was like,
that's a ta I can't tell you, because I worked at Home Depot for 5 years, and I
yeah,
can't tell you how many people came up there and would complain about sanders and orbital sanders and what have you, and they would, say, "It just didn't work, it just doesn't work." There's always you can hear the customers complain among themselves, and whatnot. So, I mean, they're always looking for a better tool.
yep,
Uh, so it worked really well for you then.
yeah,
It worked perfect. Okay.
yeah. So it worked really well on the deck. I mean, I was like shocked. I mean, the tool basically floated back and forth because it was balanced, and the motor weight was over the roller. So you're really not picking up weight. Typically when you use a tool, you're picking up weight. You have a drill, you're picking up weight. You have a sawzall or whatever you're using. It's usually you got weight in your hand. Well, with the restorer, the weight's on the surface. You're just kind of holding it, steadying it, and it's floating on the surface, right? Um, so for me, it's like I had this tool now, and I had come up with a wrench invention that I told you I made. It was
Yeah.
actually, I had a leak in my ceiling from when I built our house back in '97, and the plumber that did the work didn't tighten up a flange on the bottom side of the shower. and it's one of those fiberglass ones, so it'd flex and cool. And anyway, it leaked at one point, so I cut open the ceiling, had a big hole, and I saw the ring that was underneath wasn't tightened, and I told him about it. He's like, "Well, I work for my uncle now, and he won't let me come out and do the work, right? Because it was on a separate job." So I couldn't get up there with channel locks because it was too tight between the floor joists. So I figured we have our own factory. I'm just going to make a tool to tighten this up. So I made a tool that was kind of like an open end wrench, but it was a periscope side, so it fit right around a plumbing fixture, right? And then you tighten it up like this, right? Just like a periscope. Picture like two handles that come down and an open end box wrench at the top. So it slipped right around the pipe, and your handles just went right around the pipe. It was all open in the middle. And I actually sold that to Ridge Tool, the idea. And so I had that was prior to this. And so when I had the restore, I thought, oh, I'm going to show Ridge Tool, which is really rigid, actually rigid brand, right? And so I thought Ridge Tool owned Rigid Tools, as in power tools, right? So I go up and meet with them and show them. They're like, well, that's, not really us. We don't do power tools. We do plumbing tools, but I'll connect you with a guy that could probably help you out. So he sent me to Mike Farah. Mike Farah was, I don't know if he still is, but the president of TTI, which is Tektronix Industries. They're out of Hong Kong, but they're actually in Anderson, South Carolina as well. They have a U.S. headquarters, and they build rigid, Ryobi, and Milwaukee tools.
Okay.
Right. So they connected me with the president of this company. I show him the tool. He connects me with one of their product managers, right? That's how they usually do it. They have product managers, and these guys cycle through positions. They're here for so many years, then they're on to something else. But I got it in with them, and I'm still connected to the guy on Facebook from years ago. But I sent the tool down to them, and they had it for 2 years, and tried to show Home Depot buyer. It took them like 2 years to present it to the Home Depot buyer because they had it out being tested around with a bunch of different paint companies, and they showed it to the buyer, and the buyer wanted it for like $99 or something like that. And they said, no, it's $169 or $179 tool. We can't build it for that. So they basically told me after 2 years, you're going to have to go find somebody else, right? I forgot to mention, prior to that, I had shown the tool to a guy at a trade show that was next to us at Chicago trade show, McCormick Center. We do cranes, and it was Fine Tools. Believe it or not, Fine Tools was at a booth next to us. I showed it to him. I'm still connected to him, but I showed it to him. They connected me with Germany. Actually, my original prototype was air freighted to Germany.
Oh, wow.
If at Fine Tools, because Fine Tools has that multi-master tool, and their patent had just run up, and that tool was invented by an inventor, and they weren't sure what they would do with it, and then it turned out to be a really big tool for them, right? But the tool is basically a razor, electric razor. It's just an oscillating blade in there, oscillating head, just like your razor blade. I mean, the electric razor you use on your face, it's the same technology, same thought process, right?
Okay.
But so I sent it to them, and they made me a license agreement offer of like 0.5%. And I'm like,
one half on 1%.
yeah. Yeah. And so I'm like, forget it. They're like, well, you can apply for the patent because it's hard for, an international company to get a U.S. patent. So I'm like, okay, I'll apply for the patent because I had a non-disclosure agreement with them, right? And so in the meantime, I applied for a patent, and my sister happens to work for a large patent attorney firm in California, right? And she writes my patent because she inspects and reads all the patents. She writes my patent. The guy that helped me build the prototype did my drawings for the patent, and I did all my Google research for the patent, and I e-filed for my patent for like $1,600. That's all it cost me to apply for my patent, and 2 years later, I got the patent for $1,600 e-filed, and people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to try and patent a product. Anyway, so now TTI tells me after 2 years to basically go find somebody else to do it for you, right? We like it. all of the contractors that used it love the prototype, but we can't build it for the big box store, right? They want it too cheap. So I started
And that
my
was
dad.
Home Depot. That was Home Depot too, and I'm really surprised at that because that's one thing that Depot always sort of, even though a lot of like 95% of their stuff is done through China, but they still valued a good piece of hardware, a good piece of machinery. So I was a little surprised by that. I was like, oh, I think that you would think that Home Depot would have jumped all over it.
Yeah, they wanted it, but they wanted it for a $99 price point, which is probably accurate to their customer base. But TTI is like, we can't build it for that cheap, right?
Right.
So my dad's like, why don't you just build it yourself, right? He wants to build everything. My father wants to design and build everything. He's like, why don't you just build it yourself, get your own motors? And, because I had shown it around, my original prototype to the Navy. There's a corrosion department for the Navy because they spend like millions or like billions of dollars every year dealing with corrosion on ships,
Yeah.
planes, tanks, army vehicles. All that stuff gets corroded and they have to remove rust. And I went down to the Naval Warfare Center in Bethesda, Maryland, their corrosion facility. They tested the prototype, loved it. Um, so I had a lot of interest that way. And so I was looking for motors to make my own tool because I come up with my own, original prototype, but I had envisioned what this tool would look like, right? So what I'm going to see, what it's look like is the end result. I had some sketches made up for me. Contracted out a guy to make some sketches for me, but so I was looking for a company to get motors from, and I was on LinkedIn, and so I reached out to this guy to try and buy motors from him, and I messaged him, and he messaged back. He was with Stanley Black and Decker. I didn't really understand who he was at the time, and he messaged back, "Yeah, we could talk." So I got on the phone, talked to him, and I was talking to him about the product. He says, "Yeah, you could buy motors from us, or you could buy them from such and such, right?" And he says, "What are you using it for? Do you have a website?" I said, "Sure." And at the time, my website was basically my prototype and some renderings, some sketches, right? Just some
Right.
sketches and stuff like that. But they were like kind of cartoonish looking sketches, but they were like if you were to see prototype sketches of something that you would see online, that's what they kind of look like. And so I
Okay.
showed it to him, and as soon as he saw it, he said, "Would you license that product to us?" And I said, "Well, let's talk, right? Make me an offer." So turns out he was head of consumer products for Stanley Black and Decker. He was president of consumer products for Stanley Black and Decker, which is um, Black and Decker, Porter Cable, and a host of other brands under the Stanley Black and Decker brand name, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and so Porter Cable and all these different brands that you would probably recognize, Delta and different stuff like that. And so I says, "Well, make me an offer. Maybe we could do something, right?" And so my thought is, I just want to build it, right? I want to get it out there. I want to see what it's going to look like. I just want one really bad. And so 4 months of negotiation, they had me, my wife, and my son down to Towson, Maryland, at Stanley Black and Decker headquarters. Paraded us around all the facility, introduced us to everybody. I had a meeting in a big conference room with all these heads of Stanley Black and Decker, their faces on the wall, their paintings, their oil paintings and stuff like that, right? And so we made a deal on a license agreement for my patent, and they were going to bring it out in 5 brands, multiple sizes, because they wanted like a scrubbing tool that could be used for that could attach to a vacuum, and my thing fit the bill. And it would have been under 5 brands, which would have been under DeWalt, Black and Decker, Porter Cable, Boss Stitch. There's a couple other brands in there. And I was super excited. I was like, yeah, this is going to be 5 brands, multiple sizes, small, medium, large type thing. And, there's a 2-year product road for tools that they want to work on and launch. And so about 2 months before they were supposed to start investing into engineering and design and working on the tool, the guy from that I signed with, he got moved into patent licensing and business development, and the head lady from marketing stepped into his role, and so she puts all projects on hold. And so my project got put on hold, and then she called me up a couple months later and says they were canceling the project, even though we had a contract, right? She was canceling the project because they had another product in that category that they felt it would compete against or compete with, and they weren't interested with that. So you got to understand, like, this lady was top in command for consumer products. Her husband was second in command for DeWalt, and their cash cow is a DeWalt angle grinder. So they felt, the husband and wife team, because they're on both sides of that company, they didn't like the idea of my tool potentially interfering with their cash cow business of the angle grinder. So they basically nixed my project.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's having those two husband and wife team as like a powerhouse in there really kind of shut the doors for me, shut it down, right? Well, to me, I'm a little tenacious and I don't take no for an answer. So I thought I'm going to continue to pursue this, even though they canceled my contract. And I had interest from the big box stores. I thought, who are their big customers, right? I'm going to go to their big customers and get a hold of those buyers and sell the buyers on the product. So if I can get the big box store buyers to love the product and believe in it, it's a lot easier to go back to the manufacturer with the brands and say, hey, your biggest customer loves my product. They want it, but they want it under a brand that's in their store. Now that's a lot easier to deal with, right? Because it's a shoe-in for them, because they don't have to convince the buyer now. I've already done their job by convincing the buyer. So now I convinced Lowe's on the product, and Lowe's wanted it under brand, right? Which would import a cable to come in their facility. So at the time when they canceled my contract, I couldn't do anything for Lowe's. So I told them, so I got connected with the original guy that I signed with. Now he was in patent licensing and business development. So what he did was he did like the first ever with Stanley Black & Decker, a reverse brand license agreement, where they actually licensed their brand name out to a company for power tools. So I licensed the brand names Porter Cable and Black & Decker to use on my tool, and I was manufacturing the product, marketing it, and selling it to Lowe's. So I paid them a royalty on every tool that was sold because it had their name on it, even though they didn't produce it.
What kind of royalty do they require? Like
Dep-
half of
depends.
1%?
No, not even close.
Okay.
No, like for maybe you're paying for Black & Decker, maybe you're 5%, maybe a Porter Cable, you're 7%, could be up to 8%. You know, maybe a Craftsman or DeWalt, they might want up to 10% of the sales. Yeah,
Man,
so
that's a
it's
lot.
a lot.
That's a lot for Craftsman to ask for, since since that value of that name it's gone. Man,
Yeah,
people don't really shop for Craftsman at all. They never ask for it. They never really, no, at least at the depot anyway. I
yeah.
mean,
Well, Stanley Black & Decker bought them out, and they paid almost $1 billion for that brand from Sears.
I wonder if they got the money back for it yet.
I think they invested a lot of money to retooling all their tools, and they honestly made the hand tools better, and they made the power tools better. But the name had been ruined so long that nobody trusted it to start over again. So it's like you weren't starting out with the fresh brand new brand where people don't know enough to not trust it. You have a brand that you're trying to revitalize that's been non-trustworthy in the power tool industry for so long that you thought you could turn it around, and I just don't think it didn't ever really catch.
No.
Right? The hand tools, you could beat them up, take them back. You got a lifetime warranty on a hand tool. You get your money back. That's one thing. But the power tools were just, the Sears power tools were just junk. And, I think just left people a bad taste in their mouth for so long that people are like, you can't resurrect this brand. It's not worth it to me. I'm not going to invest the money. I had bad taste in my mouth from it. You're not getting another $49 from me or another $99 from me. So yeah, but so I licensed the brand names. Yeah, it was a big step. So for me, I become a approved vendor to Lowe's as a one-person company. Believe it or not,
Great.
I was a one-person company when I got the contract with Lowe's. I had no business account. I had $0 in the bank for a business account. I had no Dun and Bradstreet. I was the only person employed by my company, right?
Wow.
And so and they approved me to be a vendor to Lowe's. And my first shipment was 13,384 units. And I made a deal. The guy that signed me with the licensing of the trade name, the brand name, he connected me with the guy from the factory that they use. And so I got connected with him. I worked out a deal with this company overseas to manufacture the tool. And they actually made the tool with no money down in 100-day terms, believe it or not. And so Lowe's paid me in 90 days, and I owed this China factory a whole lot of money at 100 days. And I had to file paperwork, about 4 inches thick of paperwork for all these different ships going to 23 different ports, 23 different vessels to Bank of America to get my money. And I was really sweating it. I told my wife, I'm going to end up in a Chinese prison or dead somewhere because I owe this factory a lot of money, right? I mean, a serious amount of money.
Yeah.
And so, believe it or not, I started that with $0. And when Lowe's paid me, I was able to pay the factory 10 days later with the money that Lowe's paid me. And the remaining profits, I sucked right back into the company.
Of course. Of course.
So I didn't, because I had a full-time job and I didn't take any income from the tool. I still haven't taken an income from the restore sales at all. I work a full-time job and I do this restore thing in the mornings, in the lunchtime, after work, in the evening.
What are you looking to do? Are you looking to get it established in stores so it can take care of itself?
Oh, it does take care of itself because I'm a vendor to Hartville Hardware, Woodcraft, Rockler Woodworking. I'm a vendor to Amazon. So yeah, Amazon buys from me in bulk, right? I stopped selling to Lowe's and I stopped selling to Home Depot. They're just not the consumer tends to use the product, abuse it, then take it back and get their money back. Then the DIY company, the box store wants their money or they want to back charge you or whatever. And they just like tend to abuse the system, right?
Yeah, they does. Yeah, we used to see that shit all the time.
Yeah,
People coming in there and they have they come in with a piece of equipment. It looks like they dragged it down Ford Road,
right.
and they're going like, yeah, and you're sitting there, and makes it worse to sit there and say, well, can I get a receipt? And they're like, well, I don't have a receipt, and you still gotta give them credit or whatnot, and it's like,
Yep.
they banged it up so bad, so yeah.
Yeah, they used it for their job. They made their money and they take it back and then they get their money back. And to me, it was like, it's like, that's, to me, it's stealing if you take it back after you use it and you get your money back and you get your money back and you use it to do the job. I mean, there's people bragging at trade shows that I went to that he's like, oh, I buy these tools and I take them back after I'm done. I get my money back. And we're like, you're bragging about it, but that's really stealing. Because what happens is it was hurting us, our family, my business, this little business I'm trying to run, and I'm not taking income from it. And I'm trying to raise money to start a nonprofit. And I'm just getting money back charges for tools that are nothing wrong with them. They're just being returned to get their money back. So to me, I chose a different, I actually stopped selling to Lowe's and Home Depot. I mean, I've got Lowe's POs on our books and I won't ship them. It's not worth it. They try to buy the product under my cost. And they're like, well, if you don't sell it to us, for this cost, we're not interested. I'm like, well, I'm not interested in your business because I'm not interested in giving away stuff for free and losing money when I'm trying to do this whole thing to start a nonprofit. And all you're doing is profiting from everything that I make, right?
Right.
I want to use the profits to help people, not build Lowe's, right? Or build Home Depot. So yeah, so it's a challenge. So then I was able to, now I had these big brand names, right? I had Porter Cable and I had Black and Decker. And so what I did is once Lowe's kicked Porter Cable out of stores, you might remember that years ago, Lowe's kicked Porter Cable out of store. I let my contract with Porter Cable expire, believe it or not. Yeah, it's weird because I'm a small business owner and I had a brand deal with one of the largest power tool brands that's ever been known, right? That's a big name. Was quality back in the day. And I let it expire. And Lowe's is like, well, we want it under Craftsman brand. We said, okay, I'll build you one under Craftsman brand. So if you were to go to Lowe's a couple years ago and buy a Craftsman restore on the store shelf, it would say Wellington Corp, 1510 Ridge Road, Vian, Ohio. That's where it says it comes from. Because that was coming from me, but it had Craftsman's name all over it because you have to make it look like it comes from them, right?
Right.
So once at one point, so we sold a bunch of the Craftsman restores to them, and then they kicked a lot of their corded products out of store to make room for more cordless tools. And we didn't have a cordless option, so they put the tool online only. And they brought in a lot of the time they brought in a lot of those flex battery powered tools.
You
So
know, those battery operated tools, they can't make the battery strong enough.
yeah,
They can't make it strong enough.
yeah. There's like there's companies, it's like you have to, if you're gonna do a battery, it's like when I do accessories, I build the best accessories possible because the tool is going to be judged based upon the accessory, how the accessory performs. So if I
Right.
buy cheap accessories that don't really work, you'll think the tool is junk. But if I buy great accessories that last a long time and they really perform, you think the tool performs great. Well, you people end up judging the tool based upon its performance. So I buy better performing accessories. It's like judging a drill based upon a dull drill bit. You know, people know better, right? But with the tool, they don't know better. The restorer, they just think, oh, the drum doesn't work, so the tool doesn't work good. So to me, it's like, so they made room for Flex Tools, which is built by Chervon. Chervon is a power tool company over in China that builds tools directly for Lowe's.
Let me ask you a question about the purpose for what the tool can be worked for. Is this a tool that it can be used? Because I have some people in my chat. They're van lifers and RVers, and a
Yeah.
lot of times they use they grind on wood and metal like you mentioned. Would you describe this tool as something that would be useful for in that industry? If people wanted to use the tool to let's say sand some wood to build a cabinet. Is the restore that kind of tool that could do that job?
Oh yeah,
Or okay.
100%. So it's like I had a guy, um, the guy just the other day, like last night, posted on Instagram. He bought a table saw that was all rusty, so he got it really cheap, and he used the restorer, and it took him like seconds to clean the rust off. So yeah, it'll strip and clean metal, rusty metal in seconds. It can sand rough cut wood down to smooth in seconds. It basically, it's like taking the elbow grease out of your hand. Instead of doing it by hand, now it's doing it like thousands of times faster and more efficient, and it collects all the debris and dust. I mean, I have
It's a
like,
cool tool.
yeah, I mean, I have one. I mean, I have the SpaceX owns the tools. I have a lot of big manufacturing businesses that do lift gates on back of vehicles. They use it for stainless steel or aluminum refinishing, or I've got guys that refinish stainless steel appliances, or guys that texture wood floors, or guys that texture cabinets or clean up old wood beams. It just,
Uh,
there's endless applications for it. And the nice thing is it sucks up all the debris at the same time. So you're not throwing the mess everywhere.
are you going to try to take it back to the Navy?
Well, you know what?
Man,
There
that would be a lifetime if you got to deal with with the Navy.
Yeah, actually, about a month ago, like Boeing emailed into my website looking for MSDS sheets on the accessories to be able to use it to prep their planes. So it's actually in testing phase right now with the aeronautical industry to be able to be used, because you have to have it like certified to be able to be used on planes, right? And
Right.
stuff like that. But like the Navy, yeah, I wanted to get it to a point because you could do battery powered. You really got to do it well, because a lot of this stuff is kind of remote for the Navy, right? And these, my father-in-law used to work. He was in the Navy. He was on a ship, and they'd scale down the side of the ship, and they'd use tools to hand scrape the ships,
Yeah.
and then repaint them, right? So this tool, you could scale down a ship instead of scraping it with a hand scraper. You could do it really fast, but you probably need a battery powered version, right? And so my thought is, I was going to get to the point where I had a battery powered version. Now you're right. Some battery powered tools are really cheap. It's because they don't invest into the good battery technology. And so my thought was, if I'm going to do battery, I'm going to do the best battery available, which was like the Samsung 21700 battery cell. And so I'm about 2 or 3 days, maybe less than a week away from the cordless restore battery powered version launch. So it's
You have a
huge.
copy of your tool available to show? Steve in our chat here says, "What tool are we talking about?" And I would love to show off your machine.
Yeah. So right here, this one this case isn't available yet, but this will be available, should be end of October. This will match up with the Festool Sustainer case. It bolts right into their system, their stack system. So this is the battery powered version. This is not out yet, but this is a prototype, manufactured prototype. So this is the tool here. You'll see the battery. The battery just snaps into here, right? So now you got the restore, right? So here, there's a dust collection port that goes here. There's a little wheel in the back. This is the cordless version. I have the corded version over there in my office. But basically, you can open up. Let me turn sideways here so you can see. So you open up this drum, and you pull these accessories out. Now you pull that rubber drum out that would typically hold sanding sleeves, and you could put another drum in like this. This is like the rust paint removal roller. There's a guy that strip a car with this drum. So put this in here, close the lid up. That's it. Now it's done. So the spinning drum will just take all the debris and flick it off. Now I do have, this is a dust collection port. So it plugs right into the side here. You could swap it out from left to right, right? So it connects right to your shop vac here. So yeah, it's pretty simple. You just swap out the drums or accessories. And then this dust port, depending if you're left or right-handed, all you have to do is pull down on this little switch. You can pull it out, and then you can swap it to this side. So it's never in your way.
That's so cool. How many pounds does it run? Just like that.
How many pounds?
Yeah.
A little over 5 pounds.
That's not bad at all.
Like a normal, like the corded version. I'll show you over here. This is the corded version that you'll see out. This is actually shipped. I've shipped to over 45 different countries. Yeah, so this is a corded version. So it does have dust collection out the back. You just connect your shop vac into here, sucks up all the debris. This has got a different drum. This is a flap wheel here. So it's really easy to change out. And you just open this cover here. It's a little stuck here. My hands, like, trying to grab it. Hold on a second.
Okay, and we have one question here. Do you
Uh,
have a rubber wheel that can be used to take off old decals?
yeah, actually, some people use that standard drum with it. This is a rubber drum that comes with it. The sanding sleeves typically goes on it, but this is a flap wheel. This is used for sanding, for wood and metal, right? Blending. And that'll, we have over 20 different accessories from polishing to stripping to grinding, what have you.
Yeah,
So,
old decals, especially on metal, it's a bear to get out. I mean, it's freaking hard to get out. I mean, and so to have a tool that can just up and lift it. I know it doesn't seem like a whole lot, but
yeah,
man, I've seen people that got out there, including myself,
yeah.
trying to remove old decals, old stickers, and it's hard as hell.
Yeah, they usually have like a rubber drum, and there's a lot of guys that'll use this core rubber drum to do that. And so typically with you get this with every tool, and this would go on a sanding sleeve would just slide right on that, right? So now
Okay.
you just put sanding sleeves on that core or that drum. Yeah.
Now, how long can how big of a charge can the battery hold? I mean, how long can you use it before you need to recharge it?
So this battery is a 4 amp hour battery, but I have like I want to do 4 amp hour because for shipping it's more efficient, for cost it's more efficient, and they still run. The thought process was to get two of these per tool, right? So as one's being charged, the other one's running. If you have a big battery, once it goes dead, you have nothing. If you have a smaller battery and two of them, which is about half the cost of an 8 amp hour battery, you could be charging one as your other one's being used, but you'll get probably 20. I did prototype testing. I got about 25 minutes of runtime, pretty close to 25 minutes of runtime on the battery, which is a long time for the restorer because I've had people clean the whole surface of let's say, a tabletop in about 7 minutes. So 25 minutes would be a very long time of use for the restorer because it's so fast and so efficient, if that makes sense.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so this is a first. This is not even on the market. This is one of the manufacturing prototypes. It's like even numbered here and stuff like that. But yeah, so this is launching October, which is only days away. Actually, that's probably they're supposed to hit port. That's my challenge. They're supposed to hit port October 2nd.
Okay, and then they'll be in stores.
Well, that'll be on my website available first week of October, but there's supposed to be, I just heard that there's supposed to be a port like potential strike, which is not good because it can trap all my product at the port. So we'll see what happens.
There we go. And we do have we do have the restorer's website in the description box down below.
Yep.
So you can go there and contact Robert through the website. Leave a message. He also have his Instagram page on there as well and whatnot,
Yep.
along with his other company. Wow, I still have so many questions here, but I have hit the wall.
I know.
Um, I know I
Sorry about
have,
that.
right? But well, you know what? I can already tell you, we're gonna have you guys come back because I actually really want to go more into the mission detail.
Yeah.
I really want to talk about that.
Just to end on that, that's the driving force for me. So for me, I have to have an end game, and what am I pursuing this for? Because I don't have financial gain from this. I haven't earned an income from this. I don't take a dollar from the sales of it. It's going back to the company. So my goal, let's say if we're ending on that note, so my goal is to start a pastoral retreat center to help pastors that are struggling. There's like 15 to 1800 of them leave that calling every month. There's many that take their own lives because of the stress of the job. And God gave me a vision prior to the restorer to start a pastoral retreat center for restoration. So all the proceeds from the restorer will go to fund a place of restoration, which is the tools used for restoration purposes.
And you
So
know what? I'll be honest with you. It's sorely needed. I mean, this may be slightly off topic, but there's this one guy out there on Threads, and he he basically he posts a lot. He posts. I mean, it's actually just it's freaking heartbreaking to tell you the truth to see it on both sides.
Yep.
But he posts a lot of people in the church uh, who are they're just really twisted bad. They're really they put themselves in some horrendous positions,
Yep.
and they're going to jail for it. They're
Yep.
all going to jail for it. I
Yep.
mean, it's right that they do, but I'm more interested in preventing it. It's like,
Yep.
you
Mhm.
know, I remember my wife and I we go to church, and we met a priest there. Was a very nice man, and he was a good priest and everything else. And I really feel sorry for the priests in the church, even though I'm not Catholic myself. But I really feel sorry for churches that limit what you can or can't do in your private lives. Like you
Yeah.
can't have a relationship because and it's like never once in the Bible is it ever mentioned where you have to stay celibate. It's never. It's in fact, if anything, it sort of leans toward the fact that Jesus, and because they say Jesus himself lived everything that went through in our lives, he did too. And I do believe that includes our relationships. And I don't believe that it is disavowed in the Bible. There's never a chapter that says you cannot get married, you cannot have a family. There's never been a chapter like that.
Yeah. Or
And
you and I wouldn't be here.
exactly, and I just feel like, man, it's just like there's so
Yeah.
many people out there that really need to. It's okay to have a family. It's okay, and you don't necessarily need to serve the church. You can still do it. You can do it like your service. Your services. You're not a pastor, but here's what I can do to help. Help.
Right.
Um, and yeah, so I think it's a very noble thing that you're trying to do and you are doing. And I'd like to kind of come back and we'll talk about it
Yeah.
sometime.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Like we could touch on it. Like May 18th of 2012, God gave me a vision to start this. He It's never happened before in my life. I was asleep and he showed me this vision and I woke up weeping, like woke up crying, like tears are coming down my face. My wife's like, "What's wrong?" I was like, I couldn't breathe. It's like God showed me what he wanted me to do with my life. It's like you live your whole life wondering what your purpose is or what God has in store for you or what your job, your why you're alive or why you're on this earth, right? And it's like God showed it to me and it's like took my breath away. I was like in the shower trying to talk to her and I was physically shaking for at least a half an hour and I couldn't speak. It's like God showed me this and it was just so overwhelming that I just couldn't handle it. And it's like every day since then, my wife and I have been in prayer about this every night on our knees beside the bed, praying that we do the next right thing, because God's in control. God can help people and he can use us to help people too, right? So my goal is to just get up and serve and love people the best I can until God takes me to the next step. That's all I can do.
I can't think of a better way to can't think of a better way to end our show, but then on those words. I definitely want to thank you, Robert, so much for coming out. This has surpassed what I had hoped for. This was I had such a great time talking with
Yeah.
you because I didn't want to come across as being like I said I don't know anything about manufacturing or industrial. I mean I know some basics, but I don't
Oh,
know
that's great.
what it's
That was
like.
perfect. Yeah.
And I just want to know how you did it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's very interesting, and I hope that anybody comes across this interview that they get inspired by both your ingenuity and your spirituality. I hope they are, and I hope that inspires them, and to keep going, and if they have an idea, don't give up on it.
Don't give up.
Um,
Yeah.
don't give up.
God doesn't give up on us. And so he puts passions and dreams and excitement within us for a reason. And we need to pursue that. I think God's given you gifts and abilities, and you need to take that and pursue it as best you can.
That's right. That's
Yep.
right. All right. I want to thank the chat for coming out. I know Steve's here late, but I know he'll also do the replay about it, and he'll also give us a shout out on next Monday. He always does. Thank you so much, Steve and Lucas Boy, for that. Cassie, thank you so much. Team Wendigo. She told the story about Wendigo. Um, it's
Yes.
amazing. I'm sitting there listening to this and going like, this is so cool. So she taught us about the Wendigo. So
Yeah.
I'm always thrilled to see her. Thank you for Steven, who also came out, and anybody else who's watching our replay. Thank you so much. All of Robert's information is down below in the description box, and that includes his YouTube channel as well. So you can sub to his YouTube channel. Stay right where you're at for a minute, Robert. I'm gonna turn around and say goodnight to our chat. We
Okay.
will be back here tomorrow night for our 500 show.
Wow.
500 tomorrow. We'll be welcoming in singer Nikki Buati from New York City. She is a torch singer and a really good one too at that. And
Wow.
she'll be here tomorrow night for our 500 show. And then Saturday, we will be coming back to meet Spider Dobroski. We'll talk about his new movie Down Below, featuring Doug Jones, Biling, who's going to be with us, and Alexis Knapp, and of course the mighty Eric Roberts. That will be special show on Saturday, 8 p.m. Hope to see you there. If not, I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody. Peace.